Perfect. Okie dokes. Okay. So welcome again, and thank you, Ruben, for facilitating those introductions. And it was nice to hear, I guess, the reasoning behind why folks are here today with us. So this is the title of our event today. So as we said, it's led or created by the Black Frontline Staff Support Network, titled Building Bridges, Strategies to Supporting African Migrants in Toronto. And I'll pass it on to Ruben to do our land acknowledgement.
I would like to start off by honoring the land that we are on, which has been the site of human activity since time immemorial. It is the traditional territories of the Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and most recently the Mississaugas of the Credit River First Nations, on which I recognize that I am an uninvited guest. Ontario is covered by 46 treaties and other agreements and is home to many Indigenous nations across Turtle Island, including the Inuit and the Métis. These treaties and other agreements, including the One Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, are agreements to peaceably share and care for the land and its resources. Our Indigenous nations, Europeans, and newcomers were invited into this covenant in the spirit of respect, peace, and friendship. We are all treaty people. Many of us have come here as settlers, immigrants, newcomers in this generation or generations past. We are mindful of broken covenants and we strive to make this right with the land and with each other. I would also like to acknowledge those of us who come here involuntarily, particularly as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. And so I honor and pay tribute to the ancestors of African origin and descent.
Great. Thanks, Ruben.
Yeah, no problem.
Okie dokes. So this is our agenda for today. Of course, you just heard the land acknowledgement. We went through our welcome and introduction. We do have a keynote speech from Selah from the Afro Newcomers Organization. And then we'll also be providing a high-level overview of a report that was recently released, the African Migrants Asylum Seekers Crisis Report. Then we'll be going into our discussion and then our closing remarks. So before we get into the bread and butter of today's discussion, we thought it would be useful to kind of just provide an overview of what the Black Frontline Staff Support Network is. So it's a project of TSLIP's Health and Mental Health Working Group, and its intent is to provide an equitable, safe, and supportive space for Black identified newcomer serving sector staff to discuss issues and challenges they face personally and professionally. So we've had events in the past where, we've done more hands-on things around gardening, which I thought was really fun for those that attended that one. We've done some mental health related sessions where we've discussed, some of the challenges that we face personally as Black Frontline staff face. So we've had a few events. This one we thought would be quite fruitful given the current crisis that is happening to African migrants. And then in terms of today's event, so today's discussion aims to foster collaboration and resource sharing among service providers to continue to support African migrants. This roundtable discussion will encourage participants to share their experiences, best practices, and innovative solutions. And so the African migrants and asylum seekers in Toronto's, as we know, are facing a multitude of challenges that are severely impacting their ability to integrate and thrive here in Toronto and Canada as a whole. The report that I mentioned earlier did a really good job at highlighting some of the critical issues that our communities are encountering, which include homelessness, food insecurity, limited access to healthcare, uncertainties around their legal status. So with these difficulties are compounded by systemic anti-Black racism, which manifests in inadequate government responses skills and a lack of support for Black-led organizations that truly understand and address the unique needs of African migrants and newcomers. And the report itself looks at the urgent necessities or the urgent necessity for tailored interventions that prioritize immediate relief for basic needs while also advocating for more structural changes to promote a long-term change. So I will now pass it on to Ruben, who will introduce our speaker, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so I want to say a couple of things. The first thing I want to say is that this is potentially the last event for the Black Frontline Support Network, and we chose this topic and this way of going as our final event because we wanted the community to get together to work together in the future, and you know what I mean. Like we wanted our final event to be one that continues the motion to build, and the reason, yeah, and I met Selah in January, and his passion and like care for the community and desire to do this work and and to support the community was so real to me that I wanted him to speak to the sector to find out one what he's doing and two how we can help. And I think those two really simple, how we can help and how we can work together. Those two simple questions, like what are you doing and how can we help, is really going to drive this entire conversation. And like this whole day is not going to be too much of like PowerPoint presentation. I hope it's going to be us just talking to each other and figuring out how we work together. And yeah, with that, I want to introduce our speaker, Selah. Please speak to us and tell us what you're doing and how we can help, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction, Robin. Thank you, Timbit. As you said, I will try to make it more of a human approach than a data approach, because data is out there. We can talk about that. We can talk about the numbers, but the newcomers, the challenge that I'll say we have been facing in the system is deep and requires multi-dimensional intervention. I will start by speaking about why we came up with the Afro Newcomers Organization, or why we established the organization, because the organization was established in August 2023 and triggered by the crisis of newcomers, particularly African origin newcomers to the city of Toronto. I'm a newcomer as a person by definition. It's been only 4 years since I arrived into the city. I came here because of the political situation back home. Well-accomplished professional back home. And I came here and I have to start from scratch. I am very grateful that I have got the opportunity to come here. And I am really lucky, one of the lucky people who were able to be engaged in a professional setting of serving Black people in a non-profit setting. I have been part and parcel of TSLIP since my arrival for the past 3+ years on a research that extensively focuses on newcomers. And I was a team lead in forwarding and looking at the newcomers' perspective in the research. And I have learned, while contributing to the research, I have learned a lot in terms of the gaps that has been there in the newcomer, specifically African origin newcomer sector. So while serving as a program manager of Black Community Access Program in one of the reputable nonprofit organizations that's based in the city of Toronto called Skills for Change, I received a call. We have like 3, 4, 5 offices. I was actually managing one of the branches at the same time and also leading or managing my department. I received a phone call from the main headquarters, and they told me that there are 4 people in our office who just walked in, and they're from Ethiopia and Kenya. And they didn't eat for the past 2 days, and they don't know where to go. And we are not able to speak to them because they don't speak the language. And I freezed for a moment, and I speak to them, and we get the translation and everything that time, and it's built up from that it's not just those few people, it was thousands of people who are not able to get the basic services in the first world. Well, there are multiples of non-profit organizations, private organization, government, and everything that has been saying that there are different programs, but the problem is there. And I was not talking about the professional support, or like, I was not talking about the growth. I was not thinking about like, the major empowering programs, rather the basic things that this community were supposed to get, like basic needs, food, shelter. And those things were not available to them. So I was not able to sleep. I really like living life as usual, continue to live while this problem is in here. And I know, even like as a person, one of the most important things that should be underlined while we are talking about African newcomers or African origin refugees or immigrants is that, according to the data from Statistics Canada, African origin immigrants are the most educated, according to the latest data. So I remember the times that I was thinking like all my professional background and experience is going to be useless while I am here. And I remember the stress, let alone not finding a place to shelter, not finding the basic needs. And I can see the stress and the confusion and the pressure on those people that came, that are even still coming from Africa. So I decided to do something. I talked to my friends who are also refugees, who are also immigrants, or sons and daughters of immigrants. And everybody was on board. So I took the lead and organized the document and get incorporated. And then we came up with the Afro Newcomer Organization. When we are talking about Afro Newcomer Organization, what is, as a service generally for African newcomers, what is available there and what is not, was one of the things that we tried to do. And what should we do? Like, it's not to be unique, rather it's to be purposeful and to be useful and to be there. So one of the things that we realized is, unless and otherwise you are in the sector for a long time, you are not going to get funding. You are not going to get either any kind of grants or any kind of money from, whether it's the government. The first thing that you will be requested is, where is your audit report? What are the projects that you did and the like. So the first thing that we decided is we made it to be volunteer based. So everybody has, because it's close to the heart, most of our participants in terms of supporting what we are doing are volunteers. That's one thing. We identified 2 items as like immediate actions as projects. And I'll speak about those two different projects. One is the issue of settlement and employment. In terms of settlement and employment, almost all of you know that, the Employment Ontario program, trying to connect the newcomers to the job and trying to get the settlement program with IRCC support and the like. And it has a lot of loopholes. It has a lot of, for example, the employment has its own discrimination, seen number-based discriminations. And the settlement, at least the basic needs, there is no discrimination. But if you are requested to build up your professional career in here as a potential employee, the hurdles are multiple. So what we have been trying to do is trying to find a match for any professional newcomer with a person who establishes their professional career here. So get a mentor, volunteer mentor, who made it here in their professional career. For example, if there is a newcomer accountant who wants to continue in their profession, what are the major challenges that they are facing, rather than me as a non-profit person telling them, or in a different profession, a person who is a former refugee or an immigrant that has the same profession, who made it professionally, but who are the major employers? What should we do, and what are the do's and don't do's of being a successful professional in that area? So we are trying to create a newcomer match program in terms of both the settlement and employment system. I saw some sort of success in one of the diaspora, with the Ethiopian community in the Greater Toronto area based, because I will share my contact address, no problem. What they were doing is, when a newcomer came in, when they end up in the streets around Peter Street, and we immediately share to the community saying, is there anyone who has a place to stay, to volunteer for until we get a shelter or anything? So what we are doing is the same kind of approach, but intentional in terms of professional connection. If the person has both the logistics and also the professional background, that's ideal. They will volunteer not forever, but until the person is settled down. But professional, they will continue until the person reaches the level that they can go by themselves. Our intention is to make it a bigger project with the support from the government, especially if the person is volunteering their time in their residence or their place in order to shelter a person, a newcomer. The government should give a certain kind of incentive for this. This is one of the approaches that we are trying to implement. The second is on wellness. Most of you know how the community kind of therapy in my country back home, the coffee therapy, and particularly for the mothers, for the women, and also there is this community therapy, but we don't call it community therapy. It's just community gathering back home, when mothers gather together and have coffee and discuss about their issues, their challenges, whatever it is. When fathers are gathered after work in a certain local space and discuss about their issues, it's more of peer therapy. So we are trying to implement that in a contextual way in here, and it's called healing through art, or healing through storytelling. So what we're doing is, we got a volunteer to give us a space in one of the neighborhoods, and any newcomer, any African newcomer will come and talk about their story. Generally, whatever they are like willing and comfortable to talk about. And if they do have the skill of writing poetry, if they do have the skill of painting or anything that's expressive, that will be great. So we finalized everything in order to start that. So there is no need to have like waiting for any kind of or money or anything to come. Rather, we were able to mobilize volunteer space for it, and also we were able to mobilize people who will be willing to coordinate it. And at least once a month, we will have a community gathering of storytelling that intends to create not only healing, but also connections for newcomers in order to have their, space. That's really, really, in my understanding of challenges of a newcomer, finding someone who speaks the language that you speak, finding someone who has similar challenges, finding someone who made it through while you are struggling, that will be a great opportunity in order to heal through art. These are generally two of the programs that we are testing, and I'm really hopeful that they will be successful and hopefully it will grow. We have 3 levels of engagement or structure as an organization, generally as Afro Newcomers. We have the board of directors, we have the advisory committee, and we have the biz volunteers. So it's like generally that I am the only one who is like giving it full time to it, and then coordinating the volunteer, like the link between all the 3 levels. In terms of engagement, the best way so far that worked well as an experiment with the Ethiopian community is trying to use these diasporic-based African origin community organizations to have like even find newcomers who require those services. So we will continue creating connections with community organizations, African origin community organizations, and also service providers like ourselves who have, specialty in, because we also refer newcomers to different organizations who with their specialty. So these are generally the ways how we engage and how we try to collaborate with different organizations. So anyone who is here, also anyone who you know, that will be a potential collaborator, or that will be a potential partner organization, we really welcome, whether it's individual, whether it is non-profit, whether it's government, whatever it is. In addition, if you have any volunteer, just refer to us. I had an opportunity of speaking to young diplomats of Africa who is based in Windsor, and believe it or not, almost all of the participants who are university students who are at the beginning of their professional career, almost everybody signed up for volunteering to the course. So we are mobilizing a huge amount of volunteers, which is great, because professionally, I really am really interested in terms of not wasting any professional in this country, because what we see in terms of Canada using its immigrant professionals skills is a huge waste. One of the research that I saw says 50 billion a year that they lost because of not using immigrant skills in the Canadian system. So any volunteer, please refer them to us. This is generally as a starter what we are doing. If you have any questions or any comments or anything, I'll be happy to further discuss about it. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And I think I'm going to summarize just from my own brain that there's almost 2 projects that you're currently mostly focused on, but they both connect around getting people to connect who understand each other, the same language, same culture. So there's like community support, right? And one of them is employment-based, and that one seeks to connect people with mentors who have similar career paths that can relate and guide. And the second one is more artistic and almost like mental health supporting based around storytelling. And both programs are taking in volunteers and to guide that forward, right? I think I got that. And I think your approach to using your limited resources is actually beautiful. You're like, okay, what do we have? We have us, right? So we're using us. And I see that and I feel that. Okay, so I want to open up the conversation right now for any questions specifically for what the Afro Newcomer Organization is doing. If you guys want to, give feedback, anything. So I'm opening it up for us to talk to the Afro Newcomer Organization. Who wants to go first?
Um,
Go. Yeah, we'll use raise hands. Perfect. That's awesome.
I can go? Okay. I want to start by saying thank you, Selah, for having this in your heart to do something. I'm really excited about what you are doing. It's awesome. Thank you. I have if one question that I have is considering I'm just curious about what language do you use, because people come from do you use English, or do you use native what language do you use that will cover everybody? Is it English you use for the programs?
Thanks so much. So address, we are located currently in Toronto, generally to give the greater Toronto area to cover, and then but mandate-wise, we are mandated to serve Ontario in general.
Okay.
I will share my email address, the contact address, no problem. And for the question regarding the language, primarily we use English.
Okay.
But we are not going to stop there.
Okay.
Anyone who has the local language understanding from any country of origin, we will have our database. We are developing that. So if a person, we informally we have been doing it, like Amharic, Tigrinya, and other East African languages, because most of the founders are from that area. But we will keep continuing and growing the database in terms of providing newcomer services with the language they want, but at the same time, making them at least eligible in order to be in language training courses so that they will be, employed in Canada.
Okay, thank you very much. So just sorry, I'm taking too much time very quickly. So I just want to confirm the organization is not only for East Africans, it's for Africans in general.
Any Black person, any Black newcomer, African origin doesn't concentrate only from Africa, but generally all Black newcomers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the work.
You're not taking too much time. If you have more questions, you can have that too.
I'm trying to be sensitive. I don't want to take up too much space.
I was going to ask a question in addition. I was going to ask, do you have any language needs? Like, you have a lot of people who speak East African-based language, but do you have any people that you're working with that's like, are there any language needs? Because I'm assuming generally has a lot of volunteers, and maybe so do you have any language needs?
So far we didn't get, but we would like to have any multilingual volunteer to be in the database. So far what we were requested was more of English, like English speakers, but East African so far, people from Uganda, from Kenya, from Ethiopia and Eritrea were the people who requested services, but we didn't have a problem of like bringing new language translators. But I am sure that it will come. So any African origin, we will put them in our database, and whenever the need comes, we don't want to go anywhere, rather we would like to have them from our database. Yes.
Question from the chat: where is the center located?
And yes, we are based in Toronto. We are at the intersection between Danforth Avenue and Coxwell Avenue.
Great. Are there any other questions?
I will put the exact address in the chat, and you can also find that in the website.
Are there any other questions? No?
No, there is.
Go ahead.
So if someone wants to volunteer, can anybody volunteer outside journalist organization? Let's say I want to volunteer, for instance. Is it open? Can I?
Yeah.
What's your
Why not?
volunteering process? Is there an onboarding
Yes,
process?
yes.
So there will be, the first thing is the expression of interest. As far as you are interested, we will first take your contact, and then we will discuss. So what skills you bring, what languages do you speak? We will send you questions. And then based on those skills, we will have generally volunteer orientations on what we do in general, what we provide, what our services and the like. So, and then we will start you to take responsibilities whenever there is a need.
Okay.
So the first thing is contacting, and then we will virtually communicate in terms of onboarding.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions?
No problem.
Ade, please.
Yeah, thank you, Selah. That was a great overall presentation, and I'm glad that wasn't focused on numbers. I like the way you made it very personalized in your sharing. I wanted to ask, we know that the past year, specifically since last June, there has been a number of grassroots organizations, Black-led organizations that have sort of mobilized to respond to the increase in asylum seekers from Africa. I'm just wondering, has there been a collaboration, some approach in connecting with some of the other so many faith-based organizations, but also just similar to what your organization has done, like people just coming together and establishing grassroots organizations to respond to the needs that are out there. What has been the level of collaboration and coordination with other agencies so far for you?
Thank you. Thanks so much, Ade. So two things. Number one, the coordination in addressing the crisis, especially in the past year, was great but temporary. Most of the organizations, most of the influencers, most of the faith-based institutions were really concerned because of the magnitude. So we want that to not be like a one-time thing, rather we want that to be a service that continues to exist whenever the newcomers need it. Secondly, we are trying to put ourselves out there in terms of integrating ourselves to the service providers, because there are many service providers. Because I said that because some of the churches, they allowed, not only church, general faith-based organization, they allowed their space, they allowed, there's the resources for the crisis, and then, well, our primary service is providing phase-based issues. Rather, we are not a refugee center, or we are not a shelter. So we try to connect with as many organizations and influencers as possible. But at this point in time, we do not have a concrete, MOU or any kind of collaboration. Rather, we are trying to one by one reach out, connect, and try to work with them. In the process, what I learned as a person who has been engaging is that there is no coordination. I don't know if we take the lead. I don't know if there is anyone who will take the lead, or who has been generally, OCASI and other organizations that were trying to address the crisis. So we are new. We are trying to understand the environment, and then we will see where it will take us. But so far, the coordination, what we realized is the coordination was temporary. And I don't want it to be, or we don't want generally it to be like, a firefighting, and then when the crisis is over, you are away. No, we are trying to make it as wider as possible and as staying as possible.
Can I ask I heard what you said, and but I want to ask Ade a question, because are you, given your knowledge of what's happening in the community, like, are there any groups or any organizations that are taking the lead to try to organize the coordination? Because what's Selah's saying is there's not much not much long-term coordination being built, right? And I'm asking you the question because I'm a bit concerned, and I'm hoping that there
Well,
maybe is
yeah,
some more.
sporadic.
Yeah, so
Sporadic. Generally, that TSLIP is there. The city of Toronto has its own department. There are some, like Okasi is there, but I don't see like a strong, well coordinated. Even during that time, during the crisis, when the statement was out, everybody was like trying to do their best, and then finally, like there was no out. I don't know if I am not aware. I don't know if I am like outside of that really. I believe that if that coordination was there, I would have seen it. But temporary coordination was there. But I really would like to see, for example, either your department, what your department is doing is a great work. But again, from the service provider side, I believe there will be someone who has someone as an institution or as an organization who will take the lead in terms of coordinating the resources in the services that are available for African origin newcomers. But I don't know if there is. Generally, it's loose. It's generally like kind of sporadic efforts here and there.
okay, thank you. Ade?
Yeah, no, I agree that there isn't like a specific body that is coordinating all the agencies, but there are efforts to create
Yeah.
coalitions. There are some existing ones already. Just to give you one example, the Black Francophone agencies have sort of their own coalition. There is a coalition of Black-led agencies that are trying to establish like a culturally appropriate space for Black refugees, for example. And the report that Timbit was referencing to, I think, also mentions some of the coalitions that are trying to be established. So we know of a couple, but I definitely feel like there's a lot that we may not be aware of. And to Salah's point, this was the efforts were really just to put the fire out. But a lot of agencies have realized that this is not their areas of expertise. They're faith leaders or I don't know, restaurants. They're not in the business of providing settlement service or refugee support, but they want to continue doing that work. So we're trying to assess and how we can build capacity of community agencies, community members to be able to continue doing that work. You probably are already aware that the TSLIP is organizing the Phase Leaders forum that's happening on May 15, and this is definitely one area that is going to be a focus, is to identify what faith communities are seeing is lacking in order for them to continue to provide the type of supports that they've been providing. I think one of the churches that was housing like hundreds of refugees, they were very open about their desire to open up their own shelter. And I know they were looking for locations outside of the city of Toronto to build a shelter. So although the response was to put the fire out, I think that has ignited this idea of having a more coordinated approach, a more coordinated effort, and a desire for a lot of these organizations to establish a more structured and a more formal work to continue doing, what they started as a temporary work to, alleviate some of the pressures that we were seeing on the systems. So what I wanted to share was, for us as this group to be cognizant and to try to be more connected to other coalitions, other groups that are trying to do the same or similar work, and see how we can, collaborate and in some ways avoid duplication of work, and in some ways enhance some of the work that's already being done.
I have a question now. Where can people go to be a part of this connection, right? Because it sounds like we want there to be a more centralized or connected approach to doing this work, right? So where is the fire the hottest? Like, where would you point people who are trying to help? Because yeah, that's open to anybody who's got the answer, but I'm going to ask a day first, obviously.
Yeah. So again, like our office is also just learning about some of these coalitions. We're at some of the tables. So the coalition of Black-led agencies that are looking to establish their own shelter system, they're meeting with our shelter division, and someone from our office sits at that meetings on a regular basis. And I could definitely provide more information about that particular group. But as I mentioned, it sounds like there are other coalitions. And as I said, the Francophone, Black Francophone agencies is another coalition that I'm aware of. And again, like some are responding to specific needs. There is the trying to think of the name, the African food sovereignty work that's being done through the
African food basket.
Yes.
Is that?
That's one of the agencies that's leading that work. So, that's on the food front. There is some focus on the housing aspect. And there are some that have sort of combined a little bit of all the works and are trying to develop, a larger coalition. So I mean, we'll continue to monitor this. I'm sure our confronting anti-Black racism unit probably has more grasp on what's happening on that front. But I think for all of us to be, vigilant and share more of that information amongst each other, and try to, have the platform for more collaboration.
Rika, I see your hand is up. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, let me put my hand down. It's fantastic to hear that there's a coalition of organizations that are looking into having a shelter. That would be so awesome. Imagine having a shelter for Black people. Oh my goodness. That would really be fantastic. I'm just wondering, is there any chance that the government might be able to fund them to do this, or would they have to raise money on their own?
Well, funding is always the big question, right?
We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, they're definitely in talks with the shelter division of the city, but
Yeah.
we've heard this time and time again, especially over the last year, how specifically, refugee and immigration-related issues is always seen as, um, uh, more of a federal responsibility, and
Okay.
The role of municipalities is often limited
Okay.
in supporting refugees and immigrants, but
Okay.
it's always, working with the different levels of government to address this concerns on a regular basis.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
How are we feeling? Should we continue the discussion and flowing like this, or should we talk about the report that we can also send you? So that the report is reading. So yeah, how are we feeling? I'm just checking in with everybody real quick.
We can do both because I definitely want to see that report.
All right, so let's get to it. Wait. Are there any additional questions for? Wait, go ahead. You unmuted yourself, my friend. Do you want to speak?
I want to ask a question. Okay, if guys, is there any way that the organization can help the new refugee, or maybe lack of house, or in the lack of getting their papers, or any other thing that is good for them to have as a new refugee, so they can be able to have a stand here in Canada?
Can you say that again? I got half of it. I didn't get all of it. I don't know if anyone else got it, but I think your question's around housing or supporting newcomers finding places to live. I think.
Yeah, my question is that, is there any way that the organization can help the new refugee to get housing, maybe their need of to get apartments, where to stay, a part of shelter, or maybe when they are through from shelter, or if there's a way they can get them the apartments, or if there's a way that they can help them to get their papers, like their refugee paper, or like they can help them through their hearing process.
Yeah, I think for the refugee paper, so far it's like legal clinics. There are some legal clinics who try to guide on submitting newcomer refugee claimant papers. We try to also mobilize few volunteers of legal professionals who try to guide and show on how to prepare a refugee claimant document. And I am hopeful that there are more, and organizations, mostly it has been like an individual effort. Like you look for a lawyer, and then if you don't have any money, you'll go to legal aid. So the government will pay for your lawyer in order to prepare, your refugee claimant, in order to help you prepare a refugee claimant, in order to prepare and establish your case and submit to the government. And while there is a hearing, your lawyer will prepare you and the lawyer will defend you. And the government has a mechanism to fund or to support that for the lawyer. It's called legal aid. So that's one. In terms of housing, that has been like the elephant in the room. We have been talking about, Ari was saying earlier that there are, because all the existing shelters, be it for newcomers or anyone who requires to have a shelter, are overflown, or like their capacity, be it temporary shelters, everywhere is overflown. Now what the government is doing is anyone who is a refugee claimant arriving at the Pearson International Airport will be taken into a different city, like a little bit farther from the GTA. I had a request from a city called Windsor that they were telling me that they just don't know. They just came, they arrived, and they submitted their refugee claim at the airport, and then they were transported to a different city. So in order to avoid the congestion of lack of the housing process, so that's what some of the government strategies done. But still, it's a struggle. There is also a system called co-op. Once you stay in the shelter for 3 months, the government will support some percentage of the apartment rental or the housing rental for eligible people who do not have the income in order to subsidize their rental payment. So these are some of the resources that are available in terms of shelter areas. Ade, if you have any additional points to add on these items, that would be great.
No, I think you've pretty much covered it all. Unfortunately, there isn't like direct housing program that new refugees can access to, and I think, I don't know if I'm reading between the lines, but it sounds like your concern is, why are we talking about shelters? Why not about, housing? Obviously, the housing crisis that is impacting everyone, not just refugees, has even a bigger impact on new arrivals, including refugees and asylum seekers. And it's a multi-layered, complex issue, right? Going back to what I was saying earlier, the federal government is the one that is transporting newcomers or refugees to other cities, because the city doesn't have a capacity in their shelter system to take on any additional people. And we've definitely heard concerns about lack of culturally appropriate services in smaller towns, and people returning back to Toronto. It's often hotels that the federal government has contracts at smaller cities, so they're taken to smaller cities and kept in hotels until they can find housing. Of course, the goal is so that they can find cheaper and more accessible housing in smaller cities. But that's not the only thing that helps with their settlement here and their integration, right? So oftentimes, even though they might be able to find housing quicker in smaller towns, other aspects of their integration is impacted, and they end up coming back to larger cities where finding housing, is a challenge. The subsidized housing program that the city has an enormous wait list, and there aren't priorities for refugees or newcomers. They do have, I believe, 3 priority criteria to jump the queue on that, but being refugee or newcomer is definitely not part of that. And as Selah mentioned, there is a funding supplement for rent through a program called COB that is available for those that are exiting the shelter system. But then again, that also sort of, there are people who may be able to find housing quicker on their own, but they would not be eligible for the additional funding that they would get if they stayed in the shelter system for a period of time. So, some are actually choosing that route so that they can exit with that additional funding. It's up to $800 a month, a supplement. So it is, a significant amount. The only thing is, we don't know when that program is going to run out. anyway, I think to summarize, there isn't a particular housing program that is specific to refugees or newcomers. I think that is the bottom line.
Thank you. Did you have any additional questions, my friend, or a follow-up question? No? Okay. Do you want to get, should we go back to the slideshow and continue and talk about the report now? All right, let's do that. Thank you all for all of your, like so far. Appreciate everything.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. We don't necessarily need to put the slide up. I'll be sharing a bit about just key points from the report, and what we'll do in addition to the link from this event, we'll also provide the report so you can review it in detail. But essentially, the report is titled African Migrant Asylum Seeker Crisis. So it addresses the significant challenges that African migrants and asylum seekers face in Toronto, and it emphasizes systemic failures at various government levels that increase the difficulties that those communities are facing. So it looks at immediate or in terms of immediate and long-term needs. African migrants and asylum seekers struggle with homelessness, food insecurity, healthcare access, and legal status uncertainties. Immediate solutions focus on basic needs like food, shelter, and mental health supports, while long-term solutions stress the importance of legal status clarity, economic empowerment, and stable housing. In terms of the systemic issues it looked at, the report critically looks at the inadequate government responses. It highlights systemic barriers such as anti-Black racism, housing security, and a lack of support for Black-led organizations that mainly deal with these crises. And lastly, it looks at community and policy recommendations. So the report advocates for increased funding for Black-led initiatives, streamlined immigration process, a comprehensive mental health programs, and enhanced cultural competency training for service providers. And it also calls for diplomatic efforts to address the root cause of the displacement that African migrants are facing. So that's just a quick short summary. We wanted to give enough time to go back to the discussion. So I'll give it back to Ruben and we'll continue our discussion from there. Thanks.
Okay, so we thought that the discussion could go into 5 possible areas, but I now have a 6th one. But they are community support structures. The second top, so that's like how can we improve the collaboration between government and also grassroots and also Black-led organizations? So how can we work together better? The second question is about policy. Like, are there many policies that we want to highlight or look at that need advocacy or change? Like, is there anything that's structurally causing or exacerbating these issues? The third conversation we can have is around funding. And I know funding is always an issue, but maybe we could give each other tips or talk about how we can get funding for the things that we need to do. The fourth question, the fourth potential area is cultural competency, and that's really about having culturally relevant programs, which the Afro Newcomer Organization is really trying their best to do with the way they're bringing in people. And then the last one is long-term integration. And that's about what strategies can be prioritized to ensure the successful integration of African migrants and asylum seekers in the Canadian society for around education and employment for long-term integration. But what I wanted to maybe ask us is, in the room right now, is there any potential collaboration that we see that could happen? We have Together, that's a volunteer group. We have ACT, that's I think into health and being broad here. We have this City of Toronto, and we also have a community worker. So I was just wondering if anyone has any projects or there's any way we could network or collaborate right now in this moment. Go ahead.
Hi. So I was just wondering, like, I'm the communications person at Together Project. So my job is to signal boost everybody else. So if you have something that you want me to share across our socials, I'm always happy to do that. Here, I'll put all of the links here. Oops, that's the wrong one. Hold on a second. But yeah, we try not to gatekeep about things that we know in the community. I know that like our volunteers and our newcomers, they really appreciate that. Anything that we see that might appeal to them, we always try to share. So here are our social media handles, and more than happy to signal boost you guys.
That is awesome. Thank you.
You're
Yes.
welcome.
So yeah, I'm clicking on all
Thank
these.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really great.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Or where do? Yeah. Some. Go ahead, please. Oh, I thought you were gonna go. Okay. All right. So should we discuss funding? Does anyone have any questions or thoughts around funding? I know that. Yeah. I don't know. I don't need to preamble it. Conversations, questions. No.
So with funding, like it's so hard, right? Everybody's just scrambling for funds. I find that right now a lot of people are not accessing family foundations as much as they could. Um, there's a lot of money here in family foundations, and there are so many that you can look through. The best way, honestly, that I think we have been strategy-wise that we've been using is that we find projects that are similar to ours. We
Mhm.
look through their impact reports, see who their funders are, and if those family foundations are funding people similar to us, then we apply. And that seems to have worked out really well for us. Um, and yeah, it's hard though, because like usually a family foundation only wants to fund you for a year, maybe two. So you always have to be on top of it. But I think this is a great strategy. Save you a lot of time.
That is a really great strategy. So you find an organization doing similar work, and you're like, who's funding you? Because oftentimes the family fund they have a limit to how much they can fund any individual organization. So they might be like, we really care about this issue, but we only give X amount of dollars at a time, right? It's a good
Yeah.
strategy. That's a good strategy. I'm all right. Anyone else? Or can I ask, is the application process for a family foundation different than the government stuff?
Oh,
Is it,
it's way easier.
is it?
Yeah, the government ones are, oh my gosh, they're pages and pages and pages. But the Family and Foundation ones are usually, it's a quick portal, and they're looking for, do you have, people of color on your board and like that, like really easy things that we all definitely have. And so I think it's nice. It would take you less time for sure than doing a government application.
Wow.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
that's a pro tip.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Does it require many years of doing the work for you to apply? Does it require many years? Like the government funding is like so many years.
Honestly, like I haven't in all the applications that we've been looking at, I haven't seen one that said, you have to have 10 years of whatever. I think they're probably more open to doing things with this newer programs, honestly. So all you can do is try. It doesn't cost any money to try, right?
Exactly.
So I mean, just put it out there and see what happens.
Yes. Selah will get some funding from there too.
Stella, you need all the funding. Get the funding from these rich people.
Yes.
That's all we want. That's all we want from you.
That's what we want. Give us the money.
Okay. Any other topic? Does anyone have any topics that they want to discuss, or should I keep pushing it where I want to push it? Okay. One thing I want to talk about is housing again, right? And not because so you said that when people come to Toronto, they send them out of the city, right? That's what you're saying. Because in my mind, it always feels like Toronto is full. Like in my work with TSLIP, I see I talk to a lot of people, and housing is always the number one issue. And after they say, okay, what can we do about housing? It always comes back that housing is full. Like the settlement worker staff have a backlog of people that they're working with that. So I don't know. Does anyone have any thoughts around this or any ideas I'm just putting it on the table again as a problem. I'm not putting solutions on the table, but I want us to talk about this as the thing. Yeah.
So I think This is one of our, this should be one of our advocacy areas in terms of thinking beyond what the system just makes available. What the system makes available is like, anyone who is coming is like eligible, like anyone who doesn't have any shelter can go to the shelters, but advocating for anyone for a decent housing, or like it shouldn't be like you work hard and then pay it to your rental or paying to your mortgage. And so one of the policy, I saw the budget this year also has, housing as one of its bigger, one of the big elements to be like, construction. The government will expand because of housing crisis as a country generally. So how does it see or include newcomers, especially African newcomers? How the government is, whether we like it or not, there will be more newcomers. There will be more newcomers and more from Africa. Number one, because of the strategy that this country requires more human resources. Number two, because of the expanding conflict that has been happening in the continent back. And number three, because the number of educated people, the number of educated youth, as Africa is a young population, the number of educated youth are getting further education in the Western Hemisphere, including Canada, and they will come here. And most likely may stay here longer. So because of that, the African immigrants, newcomers, refugee claimants are stakeholders here and continue to grow in terms of number, and the service should match that demand. And I think one of the things in terms of housing, to your point, Ruben, is that we need to advocate to the policymakers at the different levels or layers of the government to consider incorporating the interests of African origin newcomers to this country.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
Ruben, if I can just clarify something. The program that the federal government has that allows those that can't find shelter in the city is a volunteer-based program. I don't want it to sound like it's a mandatory program where they're, shipping people out of the city. Again, this is really in response to the overcrowding that is happening at the shelters that was leading a lot of people to sleeping on the streets. So just wanted to clarify that, people aren't being forced to move to smaller cities.
Thank you for the clarification. I apologize for misunderstanding. Okay. Yes, please. Yeah. ACT, would you like to present or talk to us about how we can support you?
Yeah, very quickly. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Basically, we know that with newcomers, everything is important. I like where Selah talked about the very first practical needs that people have. They have to find somewhere to settle, to live. They have to integrate with the immigration and all that. But even as we do that, I want us to also remember that their sexual health is very, very important. And we know that when it comes to HIV, we do have a large number of people coming from Africa who are living with HIV or who are at risk for HIV. And all these factors that we're talking about actually increases people's risk, because it's all about social determinants of health. It's not because of genes or anything. It's the social determinants of health. Someone comes into a new country, you're exposed to all these, very difficult times. It puts you in situations where you don't have the agency that ordinarily you will to exercise. So that's where we come in there. So for me, one of the ways I see collaboration is having an opportunity to be, even like for you, Selah, you have volunteers. Jenny, you have lots of volunteers. People who are providing support for newcomers, they need to have at the back of their mind to understand issues that is issues around HIV because you want them to have one less thing to worry about. Imagine in the midst of all these things, you're struggling to find a job, you're struggling to find a house, you're struggling to get your paperwork, then you begin to deal with HIV. So for us, the first thing is the prevention piece. And then for those who are already living with HIV, to make sure they are connected to services so that at least it will smoothen the settlement journey for them. And that's where we come in. In my work, I do a lot of training. I do a lot of training for staff, for them to understand the issue so that they know where to refer the people who are coming in, our people. I also do training with the community members as well. So that's one area I feel that we can definitely collaborate, because that piece, unfortunately, is very, very important to their overall wellness. And I heard you talk about wellness, so it's very important. So first for the providers and then for the community members themselves, because providers will have access to people that we will not necessarily have access to. But if they have the right information, they can guide them. So that's what I seek.
How can we collaborate with you? I love what you're doing, but how do we?
Let me know. I can come do trainings at your center.
Okay.
I
So
can train your staff, your volunteers. I can train the community members who are coming so they know how to navigate.
Okay.
As people
Okay.
come in, even if they need to understand the Canadian context in terms of preventing HIV for themselves. And if the HIV is already, they need to know how to navigate that so they can manage themselves well. So a lot of training and collaborations to organize events, but especially training and providing them with resources, because we have a lot of resources, but sometimes our people don't access them because they don't know. They don't know how to get them. So, but we do have resources. So I can provide training. I can connect people to referrals that will support them. So the prevention piece and the support piece, both.
Okay, I'm excited about what you're saying. Can you give me more specifics about the types of trainings that you do, like the topics?
Oh, okay. I do everything
Yeah.
for HIV. I do everything for HIV, but a big part of it is prevention. When people understand, then they can take care of themselves. But I also do support. They can understand issues around treatment. And with the new technology that we have, there's so many ways to prevent HIV beyond condoms. They need to know. They need to know how to access those services. So at least that part of their health is okay. So we do all kinds of training, and the training is always designed to the group. And, you know, like I said, our community is very high, unfortunately.
And do you train both service providers and also
I do training. When I do
community
training for
members?
service, yeah, when I do training for service providers, it will be service providers. I do training for volunteers, but the training I'll do for community members will be different because it's always targeted to their needs.
Oh, wow.
So
Custom
the service
trainings.
providers and the service and the community members will not be in the same training. It will be a different training, but it's always targeted.
Would you like to put your information in the chat for everyone?
Yes, yes. Okay, let me just put it there. Yeah,
Okay.
put it there so you can get in touch.
So we have 5 minutes left, and I'm opening the floor now to anyone who wants to say anything to the group before we wrap up. But we're going to start with a day, please.
Yes, but I want to say thank you too
Wait.
for organizing this.
Okay, yeah.
No, I wanted to actually ask you a follow-up question in regards to what you just shared right now, because we have been hearing that a lot of the hotels that are housing the African refugees and asylum seekers, part of the, I guess one of the problems that they're facing is that because they don't have anything to do, they're staying at the hotels a lot. Many of them, and some of them have like strict rules of, you know, designated sections for males and females. Anyway, there has been incidents where they were caught having sex, and that has been presented as a sort of ongoing issue. And wanted to know if your organization has been approached by any of the you know, the different entities that are providing shelters to address this issue, because the prevalence of HIV has definitely been brought up at different meetings as a result of this concern.
Yeah.
So just wanted to know if you were, you know, sort of contacted or if this was brought to your attention.
Okay. Thank you, Ade, for raising this. This is so important. And that's when we talk about HIV, there's always intersections. People will have sex because we are human beings, right? They will have sex, it's normal, right? So, but the thing about it is that sometimes they do approach, but most of the time we actually approach them. We actually, because I work in community, that's basically my work. That's why I'm actually in this space. we actually reach out to them. And once in a while, they might reach out, but a lot of times, that's why we work with shelters, we work with settlement agencies through the LIPs and all that. But quite frankly, a lot of times, people do not want to talk about HIV. Well, HIV is real and it's in our midst. If you don't talk about it, it doesn't fly away. We're human beings. So that's why the trainings are important, so that people can understand what is it that exposes people to risk. What are those social determinants of health issues that actually affect people that can increase? Look at that. It's immigration in this context. They are human beings. They will have sex and they should have sex. They're entitled to that. But how do we make it safe so that it will not be an issue? And these are adults we're talking about. They're not children. We don't catch adults having sex, right? They're adults. So how do we make it safe? So part of the work we do is creating an enabling environment that will make it easy for them to access the services that they need, because it's a prevention piece. And like you said, HIV is up in our community. It is up. So yeah, and intersects with immigration, with housing issues. It all intersects. So our role is to just continue to do the prevention piece, but we do reach out to them quite a bit. Sometimes they're open to it, sometimes they're not. Once in a while they will reach out, but most of the time we pursue them because we want, sometimes you need something, but you don't know that you need it. So I appreciate your bringing that up because it's very true.
Thank you. And I appreciate what you're saying too. And humans are gonna human, right? Like
Yeah.
we're acting like it's yeah. Okay. So does anyone have any comments before we close, as we close? Thank you for your comments, and we'll work together. Yeah, opening the floor. Okay. Are there any remaining questions? No. Are there any remaining questions? This is the last call before we do the wrap up. Okay, great. Go ahead, please. Yeah, no, that's you.
I have a question. Hi again. I was wondering, sometimes we get newcomers who speak a language that none of our volunteers do. And oftentimes they're African languages. I was wondering, would Selah, would you be the person to ask about this, or somebody else here?
Yes. So yeah, if there are any professionals that will support the translation, we will be happy to refer or to send our volunteers, including anyone, including myself, whenever the need arises. So no problem.
Okay, cool.
And we will do the same to you too. We may probably ask some volunteers from your side. I think that's part of the collaboration that this meeting has found as a great outcome.
So that means I'm witnessing a collaboration happening right now between the
now.
Afro Newcomer
Organization. Thank you for facilitating that. You and Tinbit. Thank you for facilitating that.
No problem. So because both of y'all have volunteers and you guys can. Okay, so that's happened, right?
Sure.
Great.
Cool.
So I guess I want to, because you're all invested and passionate about supporting African newcomers, right? So I want to ask everyone, where is the next space to go for the networking and for the collaboration to continue? Is it with the City of Toronto's group? Is it? I know there's some other groups bubbling up, but I want to wrap up by focusing on where to go next, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? So does anyone have
Newcomer Day?
Newcomer Day
at the City of Toronto.
Yeah,
everybody should go there, create connection, network, and try to come up with as multiple partners as possible.
That's a good idea. Okay, is everyone going to Newcomer Day?
Yep, gonna be there.
Unfortunately, not everyone.
No,
I love Newcomer Day, but sometimes when things clash, you're not able to be in two places.
Okay.
I want to go to Ade's meeting all the time, but today I was just lucky to have this time to come because Thursday is the day for our provincial meetings.
Okay. Are there, in addition to the Newcomer Day, are there any working groups is it the anti-Black racism group? Is that the body in Toronto that's stable, that's trying to, is there any organization or working group that is doing this work ongoing that we all can add our energies to? Because this TSLIP group, is very small, right? And what we wanted to do was grab everyone that we can grab and then take us all as a group to the bigger group. You know what I mean? So where is that?
Yeah, it wouldn't be the city. The city supports the different coalitions that are happening outside. So I'm happy to get back to you once we hear more about we know of one, as I would say at least two, the Francophone and the other coalition, but my understanding is that there might be multiple other ones. We're monitoring that. So as I get more information on that, I'm happy to share that with you so that we can share it with the bigger tables here. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm also wondering, even as we are writing here, we're quite a good group. And Lucian, we don't have your contact. We don't know which agency you're from. Sorry, I don't know which agency you're from. Even as we are here, we're quite a powerful group.
Yeah. Did you hear the question? Yes, you did. Answer, please go ahead.
I'm from Washington Center. Washington Center. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Okay.
You want to
So on
share
behalf of,
Washington Center?
is there anything you wanted to share about what you're doing and how we can help support with the work you're doing, friend?
I'm a community service worker from Trios, so I was posted there for a placement. So that's why the supervisor sent this to me so that I should join the group. So
Thank
that's why.
you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So what we will do at TSLIP is once we hear more about which coalitions are going out, we will publish that information onto our newsletter. So if anyone's paying attention to that, then we'll do that. But and if it comes soon time and we remember, we'll send it to this specific small group here. But in general, pay attention to our newsletter and Newcomer Day. I think that's what I got. I'm gonna pass the mic to Team Beach to close us out. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, and
Thank
you,
you.
Ruben, for facilitating such a great discussion. I think even though we were a small group, like I said, a very, very fruitful discussion. So I'm glad to see that there's some future collaborations happening. But yeah, we just wanted to say thank you. We'll send out the email shortly with the link and the report. And I hope we get a chance to connect in, perhaps other meetings, and how we can support African migrants. But yeah, thank you, everybody, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Goodbye.
Bye.